The DNA results confirmed what we already knew. Emma and Sophie were biological sisters. Grace and I were biological sisters. Mom and Dad's biological daughters were being raised by the Reeves family. Jennifer and Michael's biological daughters were being raised by my parents. 4 babies switched, 2 families destroyed. Patricia Morgan filed a massive lawsuit against Mercy Heights Hospital the day after we got the confirmed results. She also filed legal requests for the hospital to identify any other families who'd had twins in the NICU around the same time, concerned that if 2 sets had been switched, there might be more. The hospital immediately went into defensive mode, releasing a statement claiming they had no record of any infant mix-up in 1999, and that our allegations were completely unfounded. But Patricia had the DNA evidence. She had hospital records showing that 4 baby girls had been in the NICU simultaneously. She had photographs and testimony from multiple nurses who'd worked there in 1999. The story broke nationally within a week. 4 babies switched at birth. Twin sisters discover they're not related after DNA test. Suddenly we were on the news, in newspapers, trending on social media. Reporters camped outside our houses. Everyone wanted to know how we felt, what we were going to do, whether we still considered ourselves sisters. The attention was overwhelming and invasive. But the lawsuit moved forward. Patricia filed for $25 million in damages, not just for Emma and me, but for Sophie and Grace, for our parents, and for Jennifer and Michael. 25 years of psychological damage, she argued in court filings. 25 years of raising children you believed were biologically yours, of not knowing your actual biological children. 25 years of these young women not knowing their true heritage, their medical histories, their genetic identities. This negligence has caused irreparable harm. Mercy Heights Hospital fought back hard. They hired a team of lawyers who argued that even if babies had been switched, it was an honest mistake during a chaotic time in an understaffed NICU. They claimed that 25 years later, it was impossible to prove exactly what had happened. They tried to argue that since we'd all been raised in loving homes, no real damage had been done. Your clients were well cared for, their lead attorney argued during a preliminary hearing. They grew up healthy and happy. A genetic mix-up doesn't negate 25 years of love and family. Patricia stood up, her voice cold with fury. Tell that to Jennifer Reeves, who spent 25 years raising someone else's children while her biological daughters were hundreds of miles away. Tell that to my clients' parents, who missed their biological children's entire lives. Tell that to 4 young women whose entire identities were built on a lie because of your client's negligence. The case dragged on for 8 months. In that time, Emma, Sophie, Grace, and I tried to build some kind of relationship. We met up monthly, rotating between Seattle and Portland. It was awkward and painful and strange. Emma and I had been inseparable our whole lives, and suddenly we were supposed to bond with these strangers who shared our DNA. Sophie and Grace felt the same way about each other. We were all grieving the siblings we'd lost while trying to connect with the siblings we'd gained. "You're still my sister," Emma would tell me during those months. "I don't care what the DNA says. You're still my sister." And she was right. Biology might not make us related, but 25 years of shared life did. She knew me better than anyone. She'd been there for my first breakup, my college graduation, my worst days and best days. That didn't disappear because of a lab result. But I also felt pulled toward Grace. She was my biological sister, the person I should have grown up with. We had the same laugh, the same mannerisms, things that genetics gave us despite being raised apart. When I looked at her, I saw myself in a way I'd never seen myself in Emma. It was confusing and painful and beautiful all at once. One night, all 4 of us sat in my apartment, drinking wine and talking about the weirdness of our situation. "I feel like I'm betraying Sophie," Grace admitted. "She's been my twin my whole life, and I love her more than anyone. But then I look at you, Olivia, and I see my face, my mom's face, and I think about everything we missed. All the years we should have known each other." Sophie nodded, tears in her eyes. "I feel the same way about Emma. It's like I'm being torn in 2. I love the sister I grew up with, but I'm mourning the sister I should have had." The legal battle reached its peak when the hospital was forced to produce records from 1999. What Patricia discovered was damning. There had been not one but 3 documented incidents of babies being moved between incubators incorrectly during the 3 weeks we were in the NICU. Nurses had flagged the issues, but administration had dismissed them, claiming everything had been sorted out. No one had ever followed up. No one had ever verified through DNA testing that the right babies went home with the right parents. It was bureaucratic negligence on a massive scale. Armed with this evidence, Patricia pushed harder. The hospital's lawyers finally agreed to mediation. They didn't want this going to trial, didn't want the publicity of a jury finding them guilty of switching 4 babies and never bothering to make sure they'd fix their mistake. The mediation lasted 2 full days. In the end, Mercy Heights Hospital agreed to settle for $18 million, split among all 8 of us and our parents. But the money wasn't the point. We wanted accountability. We wanted the hospital to admit what they'd done and implement new protocols to make sure it never happened again. As part of the settlement, Mercy Heights issued a public apology. We deeply regret the errors that occurred in our neonatal intensive care unit in 1999, their statement read. We have implemented comprehensive new identification and tracking systems to ensure such mistakes cannot happen again. We apologize to the Wilson, Martinez, and Reeves families for the pain our negligence has caused. It felt hollow, but it was something. The settlement was finalized in December, almost exactly a year after Emma and I had first taken those DNA tests. By then, our lives had changed in ways we never could have imagined. Mom and Dad had developed a relationship with Sophie and Grace, their biological daughters. It was tender and painful, trying to build something with adult children they should have raised from birth. Jennifer and Michael did the same with Emma and me. We'd have dinners together, awkward at first, then gradually more comfortable. Jennifer would tell me stories about her mother, my biological grandmother who died before I was born. Michael would share our family's medical history, information I'd never had before. It was strange being someone's daughter when someone else had raised you, but we tried. We all tried. The 4 of us, Emma, Sophie, Grace, and I, eventually came to an understanding. We were all sisters, just in different ways. Emma and I were sisters by choice and history. Sophie and Grace were sisters the same way. But Grace and I were sisters by blood, by genetics, by the things that made us who we were on a fundamental level. Emma and Sophie shared that too. We were 4 women connected by the same catastrophic mistake, all trying to navigate what family meant when everything we'd believed was wrong. A year and a half after that first DNA test, we all gathered for a photo. 8 of us, 4 daughters, 4 parents, 4 people who'd been lied to by a system that was supposed to protect us. The photographer asked us to arrange ourselves by biological family. Jennifer, Michael, Grace, and me on one side. My mom, my dad, Sophie, and Emma on the other. But it felt wrong. So we rearranged. We stood mixed together, biological and chosen family intertwined, all of us connected by something more complicated than genetics. Emma stood next to me, holding my hand. Sophie stood next to her. Grace stood on my other side. Our parents stood behind us, all 4 of them, because in the end, we'd all been each other's children in one way or another. The photo captured something true. We were a family, just not the family anyone had planned for. We were the product of a hospital's terrible mistake and our own determination to find truth and build something from the wreckage. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to see how our story continues to unfold. Today, nearly 2 years after that first DNA test, I can finally say I understand who I am. I'm Olivia Martinez, raised by Thomas and Carmen Martinez, biological daughter of Jennifer and Michael Reeves. I'm Emma's sister by choice and Grace's sister by birth. I'm both and neither, complex and contradictory, shaped by genetics and environment in equal measure. The question of nature versus nurture isn't academic for me anymore. It's my lived reality. I see myself in Grace's mannerisms, in Jennifer's smile, in family traits I never knew I had. But I also see myself in the way my mom Carmen taught me to be kind, in the values my dad Thomas instilled in me, in 25 years of being raised as a Martinez. The lawsuit settlement gave us financial security, but more importantly, it gave us acknowledgement. What happened to us was wrong. The hospital's negligence stole something irreplaceable from all of us. But here's what I've learned: family isn't just about DNA. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you through the impossible moments. Emma is my sister, period. The DNA test didn't change that. Meeting Grace didn't change that. She's my sister because we chose each other every single day for 25 years. Grace is also my sister, connected to me through genetics and a growing friendship that feels both new and ancient. I don't have to choose between them. I can have both. Sophie and Emma are building their own version of sisterhood, biological connection mixed with the strangeness of meeting as adults. Our parents are doing the same, learning to love the daughters they have while mourning the daughters they lost, celebrating the daughters they gained while grieving the years they can never get back. The trauma of this experience doesn't just disappear. We're all in therapy, working through the identity crisis that comes from discovering your entire understanding of yourself was built on a mistake. There are hard days when I look in the mirror and don't know who I'm seeing. Days when I resent the hospital, my parents, even Emma and Grace, for this impossible situation none of us asked for. But there are also good days. Days when all four of us sisters get together and laugh about the absurdity of our situation. Days when I sit with Jennifer and feel a genetic pull that makes sense of things I never understood about myself. Days when I hug my mom Carmen and feel grateful for every single moment she spent raising me, even though I wasn't biologically hers. Those moments remind me that this story isn't just about loss. It's about finding family in unexpected places. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's that truth matters, even when it's devastating. Emma and I could have ignored those DNA test results, could have convinced ourselves the lab made a mistake, could have gone on living our comfortable lie. But we chose truth, and that choice led us here, to a bigger, more complicated family than we ever imagined. We discovered that we're not identical twins, not biological sisters, not even distantly related. But we also discovered that the bonds we choose are just as powerful as the bonds we're born with. Maybe more powerful, because they're intentional. Emma chose to be my sister every day of our lives. I chose to be hers. That's worth something. That's worth everything. The hospital scandal led to policy changes across the country. Neonatal units now have triple verification systems for infant identification. DNA testing is standard practice before discharge for multiple births. Our nightmare became the catalyst for protecting other families from the same fate. That feels meaningful, like our pain had purpose. Sophie, Grace, Emma, and I have started speaking publicly about our experience. We do interviews, speak at medical conferences, advocate for better hospital protocols. We've turned our story into something that might help prevent this from happening to anyone else. It doesn't erase what happened to us, but it gives our experience meaning beyond our own suffering. My relationship with my identity is still evolving. Some days I feel more like a Reeves, seeing myself in Jennifer's expressions and Grace's laugh. Other days I feel completely like a Martinez, shaped by the family that raised me. Most days I feel like both and neither, existing in a space between genetics and environment, between the family I was born to and the family I was raised by. I've had to grieve the life I might have had if the hospital hadn't made their mistake. I would have grown up with Grace as my twin. I would have known Jennifer and Michael as my parents from birth. I would have had a completely different childhood, different friends, different experiences. That alternate version of me exists only in my imagination, but I mourn her sometimes. I mourn the sister relationship I should have had with Grace from the beginning. But I also celebrate what I do have. I have Emma, who knows me better than anyone despite sharing none of my DNA. I have two sets of parents who love me, even though our relationships are complicated by years of unknowing deception. I have Grace, a biological sister I'm slowly building a relationship with. I have Sophie, connected to me through our shared trauma and our love for our respective sisters. I have a family that's bigger and messier and more complex than a traditional family tree can capture. And somehow, that feels right. Life is complex. Identity is complex. Family is complex. Maybe it always was, and I just needed a DNA test to show me the truth. 2 years ago, Emma bought those DNA test kits as a birthday joke. Neither of us imagined they would unravel our entire lives, reveal a decades-old hospital scandal, lead to an $18 million lawsuit, and fundamentally change our understanding of who we are. But that's exactly what happened. We took a DNA test thinking we'd confirm what we already knew, that we were identical twins, genetically the same person living in two bodies. Instead, we discovered we aren't even related. We're two strangers who happened to be born on the same day, switched at birth through catastrophic hospital negligence, and raised as sisters despite sharing virtually no DNA. It's the kind of story that shouldn't be real, but it is. It's my life. It's our lives, all 8 of us connected by this impossible truth. If someone had told me 2 years ago that I'd discover I'm not related to my twin sister, that I'd meet my biological family as an adult, that I'd be part of a massive lawsuit against a hospital, I wouldn't have believed them. But here I am, living a reality stranger than fiction. And the weirdest part? I'm grateful. Not for the hospital's mistake, not for the 25 years of not knowing my biological family, not for the trauma and identity crisis and family upheaval, but for the truth. For finally knowing who I am, where I came from, what my genetic history is. For meeting Grace and Jennifer and Michael. For discovering that the sister I chose is just as valid as the sister I was born to. For learning that family is something you build, not just something you're born into. My identical twin and I took a DNA test, and we found out we aren't even related. It destroyed everything we thought we knew about ourselves, our family, our entire identity. But it also showed us something beautiful, that love transcends genetics, that families are built through choice and commitment, that truth, even devastating truth, is better than comfortable lies. We're not identical twins. We're not biological sisters. We're something more complicated and more profound. We're the sisters we chose to be, connected by 25 years of shared life and a bond that no DNA test can break. And that, I've learned, is more than enough. That's everything.